Welcome to Feel Good Fridays, where we discuss things and places here in Nashville that are making us feel good. I'm your host, Cameron McCaslin. Today, joining us to discuss the upcoming Sister Cities Mendoza events, which takes place Tuesday, November 16th, 2021, right here at the NECAT Studios are Sarah Lingo, Executive Director of Sister Cities of Nashville, Ted Parks, Professor of Spanish at Lipscomb University, and Lorraine Segovia Paz, Chair of the Cine TV Latino, a product of the Nashville Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So, Sarah, I wanted to start with you and just telling us a little bit about Sister Cities. Sure. So I'm going to read this here because your mission statement says, to connect Nashvillians with people of the world, promoting peace through mutual understanding, respect, and cooperation, one person, one community at a time.
Yeah, so, you stole my whole introduction. But yeah, Sister Cities is an organization that started back in 1956. President Eisenhower started this to bring the world together after World War II and all of the horrors that happened after that, just as a way to remind people that we're actually more the same than we are different. So there's, I think, probably over 2,000 chapters here in the U.S. Nashville's one of them. And if you didn't know, Nashville has 9 sister cities in 8 different countries. So what we do, connecting people of Nashville to the people of the world. So what does that mean? We help build the bridges and create the infrastructure of friendship, connection, networking between people here in Nashville and people specifically in our 9 sister cities across the world. But we're really looking to connect folks with different cultures to build long-lasting friendships and create those kind of relationships where we break down barriers, help people find more peaceful ways to work together, and we do that through a lot of different ways. So
I know, like you said, there's 9 different sister cities here in Nashville, and Ted, I know, from what I understand, what I was told, basically, you got started with this through a Belfast event, or at least that was kind of the first one that you were on. Tell me a little bit about how you got involved with Sister Cities and like just where that all kind of came in.
Yeah, so I was actually having lunch with my son in the summer and got a call from Sarah, and a filmmaker in Belfast, which is a sister city, right, of Nashville, had gotten in touch with Sarah, as I understand, and needed an organization in the United States to express some interest in a film he was trying to finance that he hoped to produce, a documentary. And I work at Lipscomb with a film series called Human Docs, which is a social justice documentary series. And Sarah had heard of Human Docs. So through that, the result of that conversation was that I emailed the kind of just a letter basically saying that Human Docs would be very interested in the film if it were produced, sent that off to Belfast, and we kind of struck up a friendship as a result of that.
Oh, very good. So, and Lorraine, I know, you're coming at this kind of representing the Nashville Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. How does that, partnership work with Sister Cities?
Well, it works in a perfect way. I mean, the Hispanic Chamber's mission, it's not only to connect with people here in Nashville. Part of the program that we do with Cine TV Latino is precisely to go beyond the borders. And when we're talking about the borders, we're talking about the borders that are the ones that we see, right? But we decided to have as our mission to go beyond that. And we took advantage of the situation that we were all living and because of COVID-19, and decided to launch a program called Cine TV Latino. And with this program, we decided to reach out to filmmakers that are beyond the U.S., beyond L.A., New York, Atlanta, and we went and explored Latin America all over. And that's how we got connected to one of the filmmakers, which is Tato Moreno, and others from Chile, Peru, Mexico, Central America. So this collaboration is a perfect opportunity to show that we can collaborate with each other, but in different areas as well.
Very good. So if you're just joining us, we're talking about our upcoming event next Tuesday, November 16th at 5:30 here at NECAT. We're going to be broadcasting live with Sister Cities and the Nashville Area Hispanic Chamber of Commerce to watch a movie. Can you tell us a little bit about what this film that we're going to be talking about? We're not showing the movie initially, but we're going to be discussing it with the filmmaker. Talk to me a little bit about that event.
Sure. So I want to go back a little bit to how we all kind of came together, and that is the beauty of Sister Cities and finding these connections that are really serendipitous and just, showing what a small world we live in. Because when I reached out to Ted about a Belfast connection, he, kind of mentioned, oh, you have a sister city in Mendoza too, and I know this filmmaker. And so that's kind of how this all came about. And Ted introduced me to Tato, who is a beautiful human being. And I was so excited to start working with him and bring him here to Nashville. The film is actually a documentary about I guess that's a human phenomenon that's been created called transhumans, and it's and Ted will know a little bit more about it because he actually got to spend time on the set of Tato's upcoming film. But it's about gauchos moving the herds from the different parts of the mountains during different seasons. So it follows a family and their, what they do in terms of their livestock, but also in terms of what's going on developmental wise in Argentina and what's happening to the countryside. Their two sons are involved in it, and if they want to come back and farm, and that kind of stuff. So it's a really beautiful piece. And again, I'll let Ted explain it a little bit more, but Tato is he really captured, I think, the beauty of the human experience in this film, and also just how adorable goats are. So,
and say it for me. It's
transhumans. Am I saying that right?
Transhumans.
Yeah. Well, let's go right into that. Explain that to our audience at home.
Transhumans is transhumancia in Spanish is an ancient agricultural practice in which herders and shepherds take their flocks from lowland winter pastures to highland summer pastures. And there are a lot of benefits, kind of ecological benefits to this practice. Biodiversity is one, because the animals, as they take this trek of, well, in the case of Spain, it's 400 kilometers, they carry on their hooves seeds from the different places they go. And it's also, I think, a very democratic practice because you don't necessarily have to own the lands where you graze your animals. So it's a phenomena that occurs in Spain, in Argentina, in many countries in the world. And in Spain, it's really interesting because I think that it was codified into law in Spain in the 7th century when the Visigoths were a Germanic tribe that ruled Spain in the early part of the Middle Ages. And then it was codified again in Christian Spain after the Reconquest had begun from the Arab invaders in the 14th century. And in Spain, it's amazing to look at a map of these passageways through Spain. They're called cañadas reales in Spanish, or vías pecunarias, vías pecunarias. And they're pathways, really like roads that have been there since the Middle Ages, specifically to transport animals from one pasture land to another pasture land. And if you look at a map of Spain and Portugal, the Iberian Peninsula, I mean, it looks like a freeway map. I mean, they're all throughout the Iberian Peninsula. So that is transhumance, and one of the themes of Tato's films, both the one that Arreo, which NECAT is going to air, and the new film he's working on, have that as kind of the subtext of the film.
I think that's just I don't know. It's super interesting. I'm really proud that we're going to be able to run that here on NECAT. I know we're going to be running it in 2 different languages on both the arts and the education channels. Can you talk to me a little bit about that and kind of how that came to be?
Yeah, so Tato graciously shared these films in high definition with us to share with you. The English version, both are actually in Spanish, and I think probably more in a little bit of a dialect because it was filmed in the mountains of Argentina. I'm not exactly sure where, I can't remember, but in that area. So the first film does have English subtitles, so it's not actually in English, so you're going to have to read. And then the second film has more proper Spanish subtitles, just in case folks can't pick up on some of the dialect or the accents. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear from Tato on Tuesday. And Lorraine, you may can speak to this with all the different places that you're reaching out to filmmakers. But I would imagine it's a different situation. I mean, in America, we're very blessed. I mean, even sitting in this space right now, where we're able to make television, at no cost, basically. We're running content all the time. It's a different situation, just like you spoke to before. A filmmaker was able to reach out and say, hey, we need someone to show some interest so we can get the funding to get this thing made. What are you seeing out in the world when you talk to people? I mean, what are the needs of these filmmakers that are in far off places? What are they what are they shooting on? Because I would imagine like getting state of the art equipment can be it's not as easy as walking into your corner camera store and just picking something up. So can you talk a little bit about that?
That's a beautiful question. Yes. So when we had these conversations with these filmmakers, one of the points to have these meetings and gatherings, and more than anything, having a dialogue, is for people that were attending this conference was for them to learn that people here in the U.S. or people from Spain or from Latin America can work together, and that we have an understanding that the talent that we have in Latin America in the filmmaker department, it's valuable and immense.
Absolutely.
So yes, they have it costs more for them to buy equipment, but also that doesn't mean that they don't have the knowledge or the skills to work together with other people. And the reality, if you think about it, is that in order to do editing, producing, and translating, subtitles, and many components of what you need for this world, you can do it now via the internet. We don't have to be all together in this room to produce a film,
right,
to do a documentary, and goes on and on. So that was one of the goals of the of Cine TV Latino.
So I know, obviously you do different events like this throughout the year, and like your goal is to get stuff like this seen, because it's not only getting it made and funded is one thing, but then once it's finished, getting it into a space where people can actually see it. Why do you think like cultural exchange like that is just so important?
Well, we have a saying in Sister Cities, you don't have to leave Nashville to travel the world. And so that's, not everybody can travel, right? Mm-hmm. So film, I think, is a great way to be able to travel, one of the great ways. Connecting with our programs and us doing something like this is a way to exchange culture without asking people to pay a lot of money or take a lot of risk in traveling. I love traveling and I'll take the risk, but a lot of people don't want to do that. So I think that the most important thing that we can do and find from connecting with one another, even if it's not face to face or in traveling to another country, is that we're really more the same than we are different. And when we can learn that, we can talk to people more easily. We can come to understandings more easily. There's less hate. There's more working together. There's more prosperity. So that's really the most important thing for me in terms of sharing culture.
Yeah. So if you're just now joining us, my guests are Sarah Lingo, Ted Parks, and Lorraine Segovia Paz, and we're discussing the upcoming event this Tuesday, November 16th, starting at 5:30 here at the NECAT Studios. We'll be having an in-person event, basically talking to a filmmaker about a movie that he just made. Documentaries are close to my heart. It's I've made documentaries, I've participated, I've helped just give space to places like that here, on NECAT's channels. Why do you think that the documentary form is so important? And I'm going to go to you with this because I know that's kind of in your wheelhouse too. But because it's a different thing, a narrative film can be fun. It's great to play pretend and do all this stuff. But I think the human condition is also important, that we're shining light not only on things that are happening right here in our city, but around the world. What do you think the documentary does for people to share? I guess just heart and just to get to know someone outside of your regular day-to-day life.
Well, I would have to say that documentary to me is one of the highest forms of cinematic art. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that is that just because a film is nonfiction and documentary doesn't mean that you don't get engaged with characters, or that there's not a climax, or that you're not engaged. It's not just a barrage of facts. It's really, in my opinion, a good documentary is a story, and it's a story about real human beings. And the genius of documentary is that a story is crafted from from bits of daily life. And that's really what happens, I would say, in Arreo, in the film that you guys are going to broadcast, because it's a story of Eliseo Parada, who's an Argentine gaucho, and his wife, and their trek with these goats up into the Andes. And while the film has that exotic quality, and you see what the Andes really look like, you can't smell the goats, but you can sure experience what it's like to be with all these goats in a very rural area. But what is interesting about Arreo, and I think of good documentaries I've seen, is that the themes are universal. I mean, the setting is local and particular, but the themes of the story are universal because it's about a family, their work, and especially about what's going to happen to their sons. Yeah. Because a dynamic in Latin America has been the kind of, in Spain really as well, has been the migration of people from towns and villages and rural areas to the cities. And that's the very challenge that Eliseo faces with his sons. His sons don't really want to stay around and herd goats all their lives. So they go to the city. But the city is a different form of life that they're not necessarily prepared for. So that's a very human story, and despite all the difference, all the cultural barriers that might keep you from really, maybe you might think would keep you from identifying with this story, those fall away because it's a story of a family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Mm-hmm. So, I know with Tato, obviously, you had mentioned that you'd went out for his second film and seen that there. But, and Lorraine, I'm going to go to you on this, but whenever you meet a filmmaker, find a filmmaker, help a filmmaker in the way that the three of you all have helped Tato out, you get this investment in the person. And obviously that goes back into the second thing and what's coming up next. But why do you think it's important to lean into a filmmaker or a person more than it is to lean into just a movie? Because once the movie's done, it exists forever, but it's also finished. You don't want to leave that person out in the wild lingering. How are you helping them move on from the film that we're about to see and go on to the next thing?
See, one of the goals that we had with Cine TV Latino was to have that representation, the representation of that voice, whether it be the work that Tato is doing, representing those type of communities, the communities that are living in the Andes, that are dedicating their lives to do something that is very difficult. And many of us that live in the city don't appreciate that. But also bringing the voices, for example, from the indigenous works that we have in Latin America. And that type of filmmakers and filmmaking, we were able to bring and have a representation here. And it's something that here in the U.S. we're finally paying attention to as well. And have those connections made because people tend to think that when we think of filmmaking and filmmakers and in the Hispanic world, we're only thinking about what happens and it's produced here in the U.S. or maybe in Spain. But the reality is that we're talking about the entire world of Latin America, Mexico, Central America, the Caribbean, South America, Spain, and the United States. And if you add together the number of people that are living in Latin America that speak Spanish and compare that to the number of people that we have here in the U.S. and in Spain, Latin America has more people speaking Spanish.
Sure.
So that represents that Hispanic world. So that was one of the objectives that we had with Cine TV Latino, in pairing together, I would say, all of these and this beautiful talent that we have in Latin America. So
It's wonderful. And Ted, I'll go to you with the same question. I mean, like once you have found a filmmaker, because you sound like you're working through a lot of documentaries and stuff like that, how do you help a person get through, the first ones can be hard enough. I think anyone who's ever made a movie knows that like that first one, it means something different because you got to get up over the mountain, to speak into what we're talking about here. But how do you help support them as they move forward in their careers? Because again, I think what a lot of people at home may not realize is like, filmmaker is a term where I think a lot of times people think Hollywood, limousines, and movie stars, but I know that not to be the case in my own personal, life. How are you helping, get them into that next spot where they can, not necessarily even earn a living, but as much as help continue to tell the stories that they want to tell and have their voices heard?
With Tato, it's really a matter of friendship.
Yeah.
And accompaniment. I mean, it's because Tato's I would say a master filmmaker and has worked in a lot of different settings and in a lot of genres. And so really, I mean, all I've done is just kind of tried to be a friend. And I think that what Cine TV Latino did is really, I mean, it's kind of about relationships. I mean, it's developing relationships, and I guess networking is kind of the technical word for that, but beneath the networking is friendship. And I think it's just, I mean, I remember when I was debating whether I would go to Spain this last month to be with the film crew, one thing Tato said was, I'd just like for you to come and, be here when I'm doing this. And I mean, that meant a lot to me. And so, this shoot in Spain was fascinating because it was really kind of a cavalcade of Tato's international friends. I mean, there were two people from Slovakia who live in Ireland. They came down to participate in the shoot. There was a woman who works with a film festival in Innsbruck who came down. I think there was an Italian friend who joined the crew for a while. The soundtrack for the film is being the music for the film is being done by a couple of musicians in San Sebastián in northern Spain. So it's there's an expression in Spanish, el mundo es un pañuelo, which is literally the world is a handkerchief, and what that means is the world is a little something you have in your hands, and a lot can fit in that small space. And that's kind of what I saw. It was kind of a microcosm of the world that I think we would all like to live in, and that is where we care about each other and help each other.
Yeah.
Exactly. And if you allow me to add, we were having a conversation with Ted about what happens with all of that wool that comes from those ships, right? I was asking Ted, so what happened? Did you buy some souvenirs over there? Right. Did you bring me some socks, something that we can use while hiking here in the mountains? Because that's how I see the connections. I mean, we don't know, and that's a beautiful question for Tato, perhaps. But in those very simple ways is how we can connect with other people, with other families, with other communities and cultures. We don't see it. I mean, it shouldn't be that complicated to connect with others. It shouldn't be that difficult to make friends and build collaborations and be a good family, a big family. Yeah. So, en Españuelo. Right.
So we're getting close to the end here, and one of the things that we like to do on Feel Good Friday is always just ask each of our guests one thing that they're feeling good about on this Friday afternoon. what's something that you're looking forward to or thinking about, and doesn't necessarily even have to do with this event, but we'll just start right here and go around the table.
Well, I'm really excited about this event. I know that it doesn't have to be about this, but sharing Tato after I met him, and he's just such a warm human being, and I know Ted feels the same way, and they're friends, and sharing him with Nashville to further those connections and further that fabric of that handkerchief, and making it a little bit stronger. So I feel really good about being able to share the connection that Nashville has with the international world. We're on a global stage, so we all need to be thinking more globally, and by having and making friends from all over the world, we're going to be able to do that. So I feel really good about being here and participating in this program. So thank you.
I think that if we want to think about globalization, we should take the best of that and apply it to our lives in general. So this is a beautiful opportunity. I would like to invite everyone that speaks Spanish or not to attend to this event, and especially go online and watch the film. It's a beautiful film. You're going to be able to transport yourself to the Andes and have a beautiful experience. So
Wonderful.
Yeah, I think just kind of to echo what I said a moment ago is just relationships. I mean, I'm so glad to be here talking about this film. I'm glad that Lorraine asked me to be part of Cine TV Latino, which is where I met Tato. I'm glad that through Human Docs I work with at Lipscomb, I got to know Sarah, and here we are, all working on this project. And while the project is important, the relationships that fuel it are really more important.
Absolutely. So, for me, I will say what I'm feeling good about is documentaries in general. I love documentary. I kind of share, I think it's the highest form of cinematic art, because you usually only get one shot at it. It's not,
Exactly.
So if your camera's not in the right spot, you might miss life happening, and then it's just not in the film. So God bless every documentary filmmaker that's out there making this thing happen, Tato included, if you're watching at home there. So, I don't want to leave here without giving everyone a chance to tell us a little bit about where they can find more information. So what I would love to hear is where they could look into Sister Cities organization, for the Nashville Hispanic Chamber, say it again for me, Cine Latino.
Cine TV Latino.
Cine TV Latino, yeah. And so where they can find that, and where they can find more Spanish language, documentaries out there. So just start right here.
Sure. So Sister Cities, our website is scnashville.org. S is in sister, C is in cities, Nashville.org. You can just Google us and we'll pop right up. So,
Yeah.
Well, NashvilleHispanicChamber.com, and then if you Google Cine TV Latino 2020, you're going to see Tato and other filmmakers as a part of that event. This is something that we do every year with FilmCom. And then, what was your other question?
Just where can anyone find more Spanish language programming to watch?
Well, I will say that there are many organizations all over Latin America that you can have easy access to films from all over Latin America. Actually, Tato belongs to one of them. He founded one that is called Mendoza Lab. In Bolivia, we have Bolivia Lab, Chile Lab, and goes on in Mexico, Colombia, etc. So it's a matter of Googling.
Okay, right on.
I would just say keep your eyes open, because on most streaming platforms, if you look, or you just put in Spain, or you put in Bolivia, or you put in Argentina, you'll find some films, because more and more there are Spanish-speaking films, documentaries, and features available.
Right on. Well, that's about all the time that we have for today's show. Once again, we want to thank all of our guests for joining us here. Just to let everyone know one last time, you can join us here Tuesday, November 16th at 5:30 p.m. To catch a live broadcast at 6 p.m., both here in the studio and at home on our NECAT network. We hope this Feel Good Friday lasts all weekend. And until next time, I'm Cameron McCaslin, signing off from the NECAT studios. Have a happy Feel Good Friday.